Good evening. I'd like to start by taking a moment to introduce myself. My name is Patrick O'Connor and I am the mayor of the village of Whitesboro. I've had the pleasure of serving as the Whitesboro mayor since April of 2013. This is a position that I take great pride in and have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for. I have learned firsthand that serving in government is not easy, but nothing that is as rewarding as this should come easy. On Tuesday, August 18th, residents of Whitesboro, Oriskany, and the town of Whitestown will go to the polls to decide on a hotly contested issue of formation of a fire district in the town of Whitestown. There have been very passionate messages, both identifiable and anonymous, in support and opposition of this proposal. Though I represent the village of Whitesboro, I'm asking for a few minutes of your time because if you live in any part of the area that is eligible to vote on this issue, I believe that you will find this message to be the most accurate, detailed, and fact-supported of all the messages conveyed to this point. Approximately a year and a half ago, a proposal was made to elected officials in the villages of Oriskany, Whitesboro, and the town of Whitestown by their respective fire chiefs of the Whitesboro and Oriskany Fire Departments. The initial proposal was for two departments to form a joint fire district that would encompass each of their villages and portions of Whitestown that each department was currently responsible for covering. The proposal was meant to merge two departments together, a move that would improve training, cut down response times, save taxpayer dollars, and reduce the amount of equipment that was necessary to protect our residents, equipment which comes at a huge price tag. As the proposal picked up speed, it was then decided that a true consolidation of all four village fire departments in the areas would even better serve all residents. The chiefs of the Whitesboro Fire Department and Oriskany Fire Department, Pete Sobel and Jeff Burkhart respectively, reached out to the villages of Yorkville and New York Mills in the summer of 2014, and a meeting took place at the Whitesboro Firehouse where all four village mayors and three of the four fire chiefs were present. At the conclusion of that meeting, New York Mills Mayor John Bialik indicated his village would not be interested in participating in joining the joint district proposal. Yorkville Mayor Tony Leone walked away from that meeting stating that he would have to discuss this with his board and let us know. As the process unfolded in subsequent months, Mayor Leone and his village's representatives continued talks about the pros and cons, but ultimately decided not to join. They made that decision this past spring. Respecting the choices of both villages not wanting to participate, the proposal moved forward, except the proposal remained with just the villages of Oriskany and Whitesboro, but included the entire area of the town portion that was contracted out to each of the departments. The process to move the proposal forward continued with informational meetings and public hearings. It was a process that included many questions, some changes, which I will discuss, and a whole lot of thought about what would be best for you, our residents. On June 10th of this year, the Village of Whitesboro Board, Village of Oriskany Board, and Town of Whitestown Board voted to send this proposal to the voters in the form of a public referendum. Of the 15 elected officials present, 13 of them voted to support this proposal. The officials that you elected into office to represent your best interests overwhelmingly agreed that this proposal would be beneficial to you, the people we were sworn to serve. Since that vote, there has been a significant amount of information that has been shared through conversation, mail, social media, and everything in between. Some of that information has been true, some has been worded to slant it in support of one position or the other, and some has been lies that are so reprehensible that the authors of such literature refuse to be identified. I would like to take a moment to sift through all of the information that's been presented. The first piece of literature that was distributed was this postcard by a group that calls themselves the Concerned Citizens for Public Safety, encouraging you to vote no. In it, they make the completely false claim that this vote, quote, would eliminate the fire department currently in place in Whitesboro. It states a new layer of government and taxes would be created and potentially exclude 115 current fire service volunteers who currently protect our community. It is disgusting to me as a taxpayer, a resident, the mayor of the village of Whitesboro, and most of all, the father of an 8-month-old baby, that someone is trying to scare you and your families into believing that the Whitesboro Fire Department will be eliminated if you vote yes. Nothing could be further from the truth. I ask myself, what despicable human being would tell such lies to other new parents in my community that this is true in hopes of scaring them to vote no? On Monday evening of the day in which that postcard was received, I was interviewed by one of our 4 local television media outlets. I challenged the person behind the mailer to identify himself, calling him a liar and a coward during my interview. Don't be surprised when I tell you that no one has come forward to claim responsibility for sending this mailer. If you have one, you'll notice the permit number used to mail it is permit number 18. Permit number 18 is the permit of an establishment in the Village of New York Mills. With that said, the content of the mailer should in no way reflect a professional establishment. I think that it's important to know where it was mailed from, though, and I'll explain why shortly. The mailer goes on to state that this plan is an attempt to shift revenues and fire department control away from our communities. This is not the case. This is an attempt to consolidate services, increase manpower, improve consistency of training, and save you money. The final question on the postcard reads, do you want to risk losing a proven level of effective service and response time by changing to something unknown? Followed by a bold statement in large font, do not let your public safety be put at risk. The issue of response time and location is another driving factor behind this proposal. I am aware of a resident that lives on Westmoreland Road in Whitesboro that is covered by the New York Mills Fire Department. He's 5.3 miles away from the New York Mills Firehouse, just over 4 miles away from the Whitesboro Firehouse, and about 3 miles away from the Oriskany Firehouse. If ever there was an example of putting someone's public safety at risk, this was it. Voting no, like the author encourages, will leave that resident of our community in a position to receive less adequate service than he deserves. Not because of the department that serves him, but rather the location of the department that serves him. He simply doesn't deserve that. This postcard was meant to intentionally mislead residents and to scare them into voting no. Shame on whomever would strike such an unnecessary fear into our community. The second piece of literature distributed was this card here. On one side, a map of the current and proposed fire districts depicted along with telling residents where and when they can vote. It also has an image of the Whitesboro Firehouse and its fleet of apparatus. I don't think anyone on either side of the issue will dispute that information. On the other side, it states vote for efficiency, vote for savings. I just covered the efficiency issue from a location standpoint, which I think was pretty clear, but I'll be providing several more examples of that. It clearly asks you to vote yes and bullet points the reasons why. The first bullet point references spending limitations and that the district is bound by law on what it can spend. This is true. It is outlined in New York State Town Law, Section 176, Powers and Duties of Fire District Commissioners. It's not the most exciting information to read through, but spending limitations for fire districts do exist by law. That's not even the case with village and town governments. Sure, there is a tax cap, but the board of a municipality may override that with a resolution and a board vote. This is not true for a fire district. If a fire district wants to spend more than the law allows, they must get permission from you, the taxpayer, by means of voting it through a public referendum. The second bullet point states that there is a potential decrease in fire tax. When this process began, Village of Whitesboro residents were paying more than $3 per thousand for expenses related to operating their fire department, while Oriskany residents were paying more than $1.70 per thousand to operate theirs. Revenues from fire contracts with the town reduced those expenses, but not even close to what is proposed in the fire district budget that was presented as part of this process, which is 90 cents per thousand. For town residents, the potential savings are smaller, as they are currently paying approximately $1 per thousand, and even that would be a reduction of 10%. When people ask who finally sets the rate, they have been told the Board of Fire Commissioners that will be appointed. Some are frustrated with that answer. I'll elaborate more on that in a couple of minutes. The third bullet point states that the plan will improve financial stability. This is true. This will guarantee that your hard-earned tax money that is meant for fire protection will be used only for fire protection. Believe it or not, this is not the case right now, and I'll explain why in this message. The New York State Comptroller has an 83-page manual that discusses the stringent requirements of the financials for fire districts. The fourth bullet point is pointing out the budget hearing process. Much like our local municipalities now, you will be able to attend public hearings about fire district budgets as well as be able to voice your input. Next is sharing services to reduce spending. Just look at the images on the postcard. The amount of apparatus that Oriskany and Whitesboro have could be considered excessive by some. If the two departments become one, I would agree with that. However, if we continue to operate independently, we as your local elected officials must be able to provide you with the best possible public safety. And to do that, we need to guarantee that we possess all the equipment necessary without being able to rely on our neighbors. The final two bullet points support the idea of a larger department standardizing its equipment and training to improve the safety of our firefighters and increasing manpower. The third flyer that was sent to you I don't have with me, which I apologize for. It was a yellow sheet encouraging you to vote no. The sheet stated to continue to have 4 fire departments serve the town instead of 2. This is a bit misleading. It gives the impression that coverage will be cut in half. That is not true. There would be no sacrifice in coverage whatsoever. Every single person that receives fire protection now from whichever department that covers their area will continue to receive coverage. However, a department of 115 strong would be covering the area of the town. No one department has a membership even close to that number as they operate individually under the current model. Continue to be protected by the Village of New York Mills Fire Department, which has served the Whitestown residents for 60 years, reads the next point. It's my personal opinion that the New York Mills Fire Department has served the community with dignity, professionalism, and respect and should be commended for that. However, there is a major issue that people need to be aware of when understanding why New York Mills is working so hard toward defeating this proposal. It's a case of sacrificing public safety for the benefit of the almighty dollar. I understand what a strong statement that is, but the research that I did made it abundantly clear. Currently, the Village of New York Mills generates an annual revenue from fire contracts with the town of New Hartford and the town of Whitestown that exceeds $250,000. That is money that is paid by taxpayers that live in the areas of those towns that New York Mills currently covers. In Whitestown, however, almost all of the money generated for New York Mills is coming from Whitesboro taxpayers, people that live in Devereaux Estates, Strawberry Fields, Benbar Circle, and the list goes on. Not only do all of those areas have a Whitesboro address, but every single residence in the areas that I have just mentioned is further away from the New York Mills Firehouse than they are from the Whitesboro Firehouse. That doesn't even take into account the numerous extremely busy intersections in New York Mills compared to the Whitesboro Fire Department's direct line up Clinton Street. In the interest of public safety and common sense, wouldn't you as a resident want the closest fire department possible to respond to you in case of an emergency? Remember the example of the Westmoreland Road resident that I gave previously? Being served by the New York Mills Fire Department, the furthest department from his house of New York Mills, Oriskany, and Whitesboro, is unacceptable to me. Shame on them for choosing money over public safety. In fact, the Village of New York Mills netted more than $265,000 in fire tax surplus over the past 5 years, a huge portion of which was paid by Whitesboro residents. Those Whitesboro residents are having their tax dollars used for paying more than $1 million bond from the Village of New York Mills. I have that bond here in my hand. The bond is actually $1,070,000 to be exact. The bond in question states it's for, quote, various purposes. Whether it's for highway vehicles, village buildings, police vehicles, or anything else that you can think of, Whitesboro residents aren't reaping any of those benefits. A New York Mills police car will never drive by their house, or a New York Mills plow will never plow their roads. The fact is, New York Mills Mayor John Bialik will tell you a dozen reasons why you should vote no, except for the one that's actually the truth. They are choosing to protect their cash cow over public safety, and that's troubling to me. Knowing where to look and how to find it, I obtained this information through foils that I served on the Village of New York Mills and additional financial information from the website See Through New York, which is a site that has revenue and expense information as it is reported at the end of the year reports to the New York State Comptroller. The numbers don't lie. The next point in that sheet states that New York Mills Fire Department provides some of the fastest response times in Oneida County. This is a general statement with absolutely zero information to support it. And like the first mailer that came from New York Mills, I don't know who to call because, again, no one is claiming ownership. The last point advises you that New York Mills Fire Department provides daytime paramedic service to their residents. This is true, and I think that's great. However, as Whitesboro Mayor, in the interest of making the best possible public safety available for our residents, I recently signed an agreement with the Central Oneida County Volunteer Ambulance Corps to house an ambulance and crew at the Whitesboro Fire Station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's around-the-clock coverage, not just daytime. In addition, they are able to transport patients as well, getting them to the hospital much faster so that they can receive the treatment that they need. We're proud and excited to have them as partners to serve our village, and we'll look forward to a continued relationship in their service to the residents of the Whitestown Fire District should this proposal pass. They are a membership of 110 strong and are doing a wonderful job. And by the way, there is zero additional cost to the taxpayer like there is paying for 3 paramedics. The next literature piece I'd like to discuss is from Whitestown Town Councilman Joseph Sarasolo. I've been friends with Joe for many years. He's a great person and a dedicated public servant that takes his position very seriously. Joe and I have had numerous discussions about this proposal, and honestly, we are about as far apart as two people can be. But that's okay. We're both representing our residents to the best of our ability. I applaud him for taking a stance, but more importantly, being proud to sign his name to his beliefs. I do want to cover a couple of things that he stated in his communication that I respectfully disagree with. He stated, and I quote, "The proposal calls for a group of fire commissioners to be selected through an appointment process that is partially unclear and partially, and this portion is in bold and underlined, unregulated by state or local law." I wholeheartedly disagree with that. There is a law that regulates this, and it's New York State Town Law 189 subsection E of the New York Code, Management of Affairs of Joint Fire Districts. Another statement that I disagree with is again in bold, stating that this proposal eliminates your fundamental right to elect who controls your taxes. That's not true. We, your current elected officials, would appoint and oversee a board consisting of 5 fire commissioners that would ultimately set the fire tax rate. Councilman Sarasolo goes on to state that the original proposal was for elected commissioners and that it was changed, quote, last minute to appointment because of politics. He's correct on half of this. The original proposal that was presented by the fire chiefs was for elected commissioners. As the process unfolded and more was learned about the options, the majority of us, 13 out of 15 in fact, felt that appointed commissioners was the best way to serve our residents. I can tell you that the change was not last minute and was not, in my opinion, because of politics. I will share my personal thoughts on why an appointed commission was more appropriate. First, the proposal itself is only as strong as the way that it's implemented. What good is a proposal of a significant reduction in fire tax unless we take the strongest approach possible to ensure that it comes to fruition? I have been informed of this proposal from day one and studied the proposed finances. It's a solid model that shows significant savings. With that said, the execution of the proposal hinges on the Board of Fire Commissioners. The best way for me as the Whitesboro Mayor to ensure that the proposed savings actually occur is to be part of the selection process that appoints the commissioners. I want to be able to take my time and find the right people that have the same fiscally conservative approach that I do and will agree to see this proposal delivers what it promises, savings. I'm not going to appoint someone that's going to change the entire proposal that was made because that would be unfair to you, our taxpayers. Having an elected commission could totally change the financial portion of the proposal that we are making to you. You could have someone on one end of the spectrum that, if gets elected, could overspend the proposal. And on the opposite, you could have someone so unwilling to provide the financial support in the proposal and protect our firefighters because they're not willing to provide adequate equipment. It is my belief that the best way to ensure the savings model that was proposed is through a careful selection process. My second reason for supporting having appointed commissioners is because of the election model that is in place in fire districts. The sitting fire commissioners are responsible for selecting who will be the chairman of the election and also who will be the election inspectors. Those on the commission are essentially calling the shots of who will oversee and how the election will run for elections that they themselves are a part of. This is a huge conflict of interest for me, and during this process only solidified my position of appointed commissioners. Third, by the 3 boards meeting jointly each year to make appointments, there stands a much better chance that the commission will be made of someone from each jurisdiction, Oriskany, Whitesboro, and Whitestown. This means representation of all of the residents. Under the elected model, 5 people that live in the town could be voted in, leaving the villages with no representation at all on this commission. The same could be true if all 5 commissioners were elected from the village of Whitesboro. It's not in anyone's best interest to have the Board of Fire Commissioners be heavily weighted one way or the other. The only way to prevent that is by appointing them, so that we can make sure all residents are represented by at least one commissioner from their area. Finally, the election commissioners leaves open the possibility of all 5 fire commissioners also being members in the department whose budget they will be controlling. I would like to think that everyone would do what's fiscally responsible, but I'll be honest, the thought of the commission being made up entirely of firefighters troubles me a little. It's a bit of a conflict of interest for me that's easily avoided by being able to appoint them. The law that governs the elections in fire districts is New York State Town Law 175, Election of Fire District Officers. It discusses everything I just mentioned. When taking into consideration all the facts and opinions that I have just shared with you, I don't believe at all that accusing this proposal of being a form of taxation without representation is justified at all. Taxation without representation is Whitesboro residents footing the bill for a $1 million plus bond in the Village of New York Mills for benefits that they will never reap. And keeping on the subject of bonding, if the fire district wishes to ever make a purchase by means of using a bond, it is required by law that it be decided by the taxpayers through a public referendum vote. There's a law for this also. It's Section 38 of the New York State Local Finance Law, referenda on bond resolutions or capital note resolutions. You would decide on whether or not to authorize such a purchase. That is a benefit of a fire district that is not realized with your own current government and is not required to bring bonding to taxpayers before doing so. While I don't agree with some of Councilman Sarasolo's claims, I again would like to thank him for having the courage to stand by his beliefs and voice them openly. Other people sending out literature should take a lesson from Joe. I'm proud to have him as my councilman, and despite our differences of opinion, I have no doubt we will remain friends. Well, I'm sure this was a lot of information for you to take in. I promised that this message would be the most fact-based of all messages conveyed to this point, and I believe that I've done that. You have a right to know as much information as possible before deciding on how to cast your vote. I hope the information that I have provided to you was beneficial in helping you make that decision, whichever decision it might be. But keep in mind, government at a state level continues to make it more and more difficult for towns and villages to operate the way they used to. I talk to people every day that are fed up with taxes in New York State. The ideal way to keep taxes down is to generate more revenue through non-tax related income. That's all well and good, but there is only so much that we're able to do. We have to continue to hold or reduce taxes at the local level, and that involves cutting expenses through consolidation or shared services, the reason for this proposal. Everyone I talk to wants their taxes to go down. I'm a taxpayer too, so I'm with you. But we cannot continue to do business the same way and by some miracle expect a different result. It's just not possible. I understand that change can be scary, but it's also necessary for small town survival. I took a chance when I proposed that our village discontinue contracting our trash pickup 3 years ago and instead make it one of the responsibilities of our Department of Public Works. I was told, it can't be done, it won't save money, and it would fail. I had to sell the fact that a purchase of a $100,000 garbage truck was a way to save money. I prepared a budget analysis much like the one that the two fire chiefs did for this district. On paper, my trash proposal showed savings that were significant. Though the proposal showed savings, I could not 100% guarantee savings. Things come up, things happen, and plans change. However, we just closed out our third year of the initiative, and over the course of the 3 years, saved more than $150,000 to Village of Whitesboro taxpayers, and that includes the purchase of our garbage trucks. This proposed fire district plan is even more likely to save money because that proposal does not include any additional spending whatsoever to make it succeed. It actually cuts spending. I have studied this proposal at length, and it is my belief that it absolutely is in your best interest from a financial standpoint and from a public safety standpoint. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to hear my message. I want to make it clear to all residents that regardless of what happens on Tuesday, our brave men and women will continue to answer your call when you need them to. We are fortunate to have them, and we owe our courageous volunteers a debt of gratitude. On Tuesday, August 18th, I urge you to join me in continuing to support our volunteers by voting yes. Thank you.